Hello everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel DBK Fun Day, all about RDBMS. Before we dive into the video, let me walk you through the agenda or the topics which we are going to cover today. So what we are going to cover today is how to create DB2 instance, how to create DB database using DB2 sample command. So let's see how and what are the steps we need to take to create the DB2 instance and the database using the DB2 sample command. Okay. So let's see what I have prepared a document so that the same thing which will be using to create the instance and the items which we have for the today's agenda. So what we have today is uh, first point is how to create DB2 instance. Then what we will do is how to create the database using the DB2 sample command. This is one of the utility which is given by DB2 for creating this any databases of your choice on your place by using this command. So before we get into the database creation or database instance creation, we need to understand one thing is there are certain things which we always take care when we go and create anything into the technology. The first part is basically the group creation. The prerequisite what we need before we create the instance are basically the groups. Those groups are basically important. Reason being, though the access which we talk about and what the configuration we talk about are all related to the groups which we need to create in. So it is mandatory basically for any type of environment, whether it is a RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or any SUSE Linux, Fedora, Ubuntu, Windows, or maybe for that matter, AIX servers, which we generally create for our enterprise data solutions. Okay, so group add, this is a command basically. Yes, another thing I want to highlight herein, if you want to get more information about how these commands are going to work and kind of have a hands-on on it, I would suggest go ahead and watch my previous video which I uploaded for creation of DB2 installation on the Oracle VirtualBox. You would get the detailed information, thorough information about why we need these groups basically to be created and how we can create that. Okay. Then first group is very much important, which is DB2 iadmin 1. Okay. And RHEL, which environment we are using here as a RHEL 9, right? So then again, second group which we need is for basically group add, DB2 FADM. So this is basically the group which will be associated with DB2 fence user. Then once we are done with this one, this is a command basically. If you want to validate the groups, we need to basically cat etc group grep I with the DB2 I asterisk. So it will basically look after for all the groups which starts with the DB2. So what is the basically file which we need to query? That is basically etc group. So to find the group information, you can go ahead and file a query against the etc group. And the second step basically user creation. Since we have already covered this user creation, so I'm not going to hit these commands on my server. What I'm just walking you through with the theoretical portion of it, because to understand this is a prerequisites before you go into the database instance or DB2 instance creation. So the users are also equally important. So one thing I also need to cover is the desk. This you might have seen DAS admin. So this is not needed. Prior to 9.7 version, there was a requirement of the DAS user. It was something like admin server we used to create or admin user we need to create. But now after 9.7, right, DB2 version 9.7, it is not recommended to use, and I would say it is deprecated. So we are no further. We are not using at all in current versions. If I talk about DB2 11.5 or the recent versions of DB2. Okay. So with that one, again, we created two groups basically here, and then the same group. Using the same group, we would be creating basically additional users. One is the DB2 inst1, another is the DB2 fence ID. Okay, so we can remove this because it should be DB2 fence. So why we need the DB2 inst1 and why we need the DB2 fence 1? This is a question basically, a generic question, anybody can say. So In DB2, whenever you want to create the instance, you have to basically onboard a user with the same name. Let's say, for example, if I create a DB2 instance with the instance by using DB2 inst2, for example, my instance name is DB2 inst2. If I don't have that user created on Unix environment or Linux environment, or for that matter on Windows, I won't be able to create that instance. Why we cannot do that? That is how the DB2 is architecturally defined. That's how the DB2 architecture is. You cannot basically create the instance without having that user created onto the operating system. So what prerequisite is related to this one? When we are going ahead for the DB2 instance creation, we would need to create basically DB2 instance user in place. Same for the DB2 fence one. Okay. So why we create DB2 fence one? What is the need of it? So if I need to highlight one structure of it, DB2 fence one plays a very significant role when we talk about the DB2 process model. Or in other words, if I say in DB2 architecture, DB2 fence user plays a very significant role when you are basically going to talk about user defined functions or user defined stored procedures. If you do not have a fence user defined on that, you cannot call basically your user defined functions and your user defined stored procedures, because in process model, the moment you hit user defined function and user defined stored procedure, internally DB2 fence user basically take those inputs and assigns you a specific threads or processors to get your work done on your behalf. Okay, so I'm not going to get into details. Probably we'll cover that somewhere in future sections of videos, but let's see what is there in the next documentations. So if at all you need to validate, again, you need to validate by using cat etc password. So now here, which file you are querying basically etc password. Earlier, which file you were querying basically etc group. Now you need to do basically etc password and grep with the db2i star. So when you basically get the result out of this particular command, you need to validate the name of the user. Obviously, you've already validated the groups, but you need to validate the username and the associated home directory. It is mandatory to have the associated home directory for the user. Maybe fence user, it's okay. You can give any of the directory from the operating system, but make sure you give some reasonable and the, you know, known name or meaningful name to the instance user, because everything which gets created or gets configured while you creating the instance, it is going to sit into that particular folder. So make sure you have the basically db2 instance directory created well in advance when you basically go ahead and install the db2 instance. Okay, so what it says, once you are done with the above user, please create instance using the db2 installation directory. So what is the syntax for that? db2 dir instance, db2 icrt, a authentication type, user fence id, and the instance name. So what is basically db2 directory? db2 directory is basically the path where your db2 is installed. So one prerequisite additionally is like, when you're going to create the db2 instance, you need to make sure you have a db2 software installed already on that machine. Okay, so what if we do not run this below command without creating the db2 user? The same thing which I have discussed already. I'll show you when without, because since we have not created db2 inst5, it won't let you create the db2 instance, because we need to make sure the db2 inst1 is existing. Okay, so same thing which I have already highlighted above, where the db2 fence one is a user id under which fence user defined functions and fence stored procedures runs. Okay, so create db2 database using the same thing, like, the same, it is a part of our agenda today. So how you can create basically db2 database? db2 sample is the command, as well as I would say db2 sample is a utility which basically helps you to create the database. So it creates the database of your own choice. Let's say you want to have the custom name, you can put that. In case if same database is already existing, you can force that data command to create the same database name by dropping the existing one. Or if you want that database to be created on a separate path, any specific path, you have additional command with the same thing, like, adding one specific parameter to that db path. Okay, Then DB sample encryption, if you want to create your database with encrypted structure, you could do that by using parameter called as a hyphen encrypt. Okay, so these are the underneath commands, like what to see, what happens, what all DB2 sample command has created on the DB2 instance. If you need to validate, there is certain set of commands I'm going to execute to show you, like what happens when you hit the DB2 sample command. If it gets completed, what are the things it creates into the DB2 instance. Same thing goes for the DB2 instance. You need to check, basically it's not simply you just go and create the DB2 I create and follow by the parameter passed. You should ideally go into the system and look like what your DB2 instance create command is doing it. Because tomorrow, if any issue you face on the instance, you would have basically list of things to go ahead and validate as to how and what my DB2 I create command has done. Okay, so let's dive into the practical session to see, like how I'm going to do those things. So let's go to basically the putty session. So putty session is nothing, basically a terminal which helps me to access my virtual machine or my virtual server, or maybe any server which is sitting on the any location on the given territory or given place or anywhere in the world. Okay, so let's hit the db2ls command. So db2ls command to see what is there in basically my operating system and where my db2 is installed. So if I put the db2ls command, you would see there is a one path which you get to see, and you just cd to this path. Then from this path, I need to find basically the db2 instance path, or maybe the instance folder. So you see here, there's one instance file directory. So what I need to do is basically cd to instance. Okay, so once I have done the change directory to instance, I need to see what all the things are there. So I need to basically specifically look for db2 I create. Okay, no problem. So let's do that. Okay, let's see what command I have given for the db2 instance creation. Same, let's repeat db2 icirt. I don't want, I'm in the path already. So db2 icirt, a as in server. So we need to give you as an user, which user we created, basically db2 fence1 and db2 inst1. Okay, so let's see in this command. And so let me show you one thing here. Let's say I'll give 6 instead of db2 inst1. Okay, since I have not created the db2 in 6, so let me show you, like what it does when I create this. Hit enter. So you see here, I don't want to get into the more details of the log into the temp one, but the main thing you need to see on the top lines, see what it says here. The user ID, this one is invalid. Explanation: an attempt to access the given user ID failed. One of the following situations has occurred. This user ID does not exist on the system. The home directory of this user is not set up properly. One of the user attributes needed by the database manager is unset. The user ID, UID of this user is set to 0. What it means is this particular user doesn't exist. Or maybe even if it is existing, right? Then it will create the instance name with that user, right? So we need to make sure basically the user name exists already, and it will create the instance name with that user. Okay, so that's what we need to take care of it. Let's control C from here, and clear. So let's go back with the same command. Let's use that I1 because we do have the same users already in place. Let's hit enter. So hoping it is going to get the database instance created. So it's creating in total number 4. I mean, it has to execute 4 different tasks. So what are the tasks it is creating? One, the first task is basically setting default global profile registry variables. Another one, initializing instance list, and then configuring db2 instance. So it has to do all the permutation and combination, setting up the things so that the instance is available for you for the further uh, step step of actions. Maybe because it is mandatory, right? So how the hierarchy goes in, if I need to go back, right? If I need to tell you something like the hierarchy goes in, basically first comes your instance, DB2, then your instance, then database, then table spaces, then buffer pools, and all like that. I'll talk about those hierarchies so that you understand that, and you keep in your mind as to what are the things we need to take care before we get the object created. Anything like, if I talk about table spaces, what are the prerequisites are required for the table spaces? If I need to create the buffer pool, what prerequisites are needed for the buffer pool? So you see the instance execution is the execution completed successfully. You can see the logs. So I don't want to get into the logs. I think we can, if you want to go, I can navigate to that one to see like, what is done. It is said like, you see here, you can read about this. DB2 setup log file started operating system information. Obviously, it is giving you the operating system information. Instance name, obviously, whichever said, whatever the user you are going to put, that will be the instance username. Username is again same. Fence user is this one. You could see and set properly and read about like, whatever is there. Okay, so once you do this application of instance on your machine, on your local machine, or any of the place, right? So what you could do is you can go ahead and read about that, what things which basically when creating the instance, it keeps there in that. So next step is, now since my instance is created, so can I validate my instance is running, or how many instances I need to see, like, if any additional instance got created? Same thing I need to do, db2ls, go to that same path. Okay, cd instance. Okay, and then look for db2i list. So you see that db2i list is somewhere here. So it has a basically one file script, and there is a one soft link. So I'll tell you what is the use of soft link in this case. Okay, so if I run db2i list, you see there is a, if I put the db2i list, it will give you my the list, my instance name. So what ilist does, db2 ilist basically gives you the list of instances on this particular machine. If you have a one instance, you'll get one. If you have a two instances, you will get two. If you have a 10 instances, you will get basically 10 instances here. Okay, so this is one of the way to validate, like, how many instances. If you did not, if the instance command, creation command fails somewhere, and you won't be able to get the list into this particular part. Another way, ps hyphen ef, or maybe instead of this one, you can put top command. So when you hit the top command, it will tell you all the information about memory, CPU, users, processors, right? How much memory is free, how much is slipping, how much basically buffer cache is free, swap memory is available, free, total, right? These are the information you get from the top command. Top command is obviously not a DB2 command. It is basically operating system command. So let's put Q and come out of it. And what we can do is let's do ps-ef grep with DB2 sysc. Okay, or sys, maybe you can put this way. So as of now, whatever you are hitting, it is giving you back. So it means there should be one process with the DB2 sysc which should be running on this machine. So how? Let's see what we will do that. So now what we will do is let's validate whether my instance got created or not. Same, if I need to go back and refer my document, right, starting from the bottom, these are the commands I need to see. So DB2 sysc is not existing. Now let's check, like, how we can get the DB2 SQL lib who I am. So to check that who I am is basically the command to check, like, which user I am in at the moment. So at the moment I am in root. So what I need to do, switch user from here, db2 inst 1. Okay. So you see earlier from this particular prompt, right, I had root. Now you see db2 inst 1. So now I need to hit the same command again. Who am I? So who am I is giving me the db2 inst 1. So now I'm in db2 instance profile. Now I'm logged in as a db2 inst 1. So ls-lrt pwd, sorry, pwd, you see this is a home directory of instance. Remember? Okay, let's go back here. Again, go back, turn back. So same thing, what we'll do is, let's say this is what we did is, I missed to check this command, but I think since I was aware of that, this is already created. So let's say, for example, if you're building the server as a DBA, you need to make sure, you are doing this one. So I'm good. We have a IADM, FADM. Okay. Second thing is like, let's check about the users. Since it's a validation already because we created instance, so hence user was existing. So the moment I have given the different user, we could not qualify for the instance creation, hence it failed. So what you see here, what are the things you need to make sure? You need to make sure the username and the instance home directory, fence user, fence user directory. So it's not mandatory to keep the fence on the home directory. You can keep anywhere, but you need to make sure you remember where your instance home directory sits, because it is going to basically tell you something. What you need, it is telling you something, SQL lib. So SQL lib, why I am highlighting the SQL lib? So the check these after DB2 instance creation. DB2 since C is not there, but SQL lib is there, which signifies, which represents, right? Which represents my instance is created. Okay. So what we need to see, what is there inside? There are a lot of file inside. Remember when I was navigating through the DB2 instance where I hit the command DB2 ilist, right? You saw that when I say DB2 ilist, there was a soft link. These are the soft links. You see here? You see the soft link basically law, all are mostly majority of the soft links are related to the link where my DB2 is installed. What is that? OPT IBM DB2 version 11.5, blah blah blah. Okay. Again, one thing I wanted to show you here. Let's see what is that. Let's clear the screen. Let's have an LRT DB2I list. It's not showing somewhere. It will be somewhere here. Okay, let's see. I think let's go back again. If I hit that command, it is here. Sorry, DB2 I list. Okay, it gives you here as a instance which is up and running. So let's see. Let me find out where it was idly. It should be. It should be somewhere. CDCFJ. No, here it is. Not. Let's see where it will be. Admin, I have checked already. DB2TS, I have already checked. Federation tools. Okay, we'll come back on this one. It is missed from my mind at the moment, basically, if you ask me, but it would be here itself. It is pointing somewhere from where it is basically picking up that command. Okay, so we'll come back to that. So this is done, right? So now what we can do is we can clear the screen, come back, CD. So what was the next step which we need to cover is basically, second part is basically is to how to create the sample database. Okay, so let's hit the command. You should be running this command from the instance owner. Instance owner is what? DB2 instance. So DB2 SAMPL. Hit enter. So hopefully it is creating the instance. So let's see. It will show you the steps as well. Is to what other things are creating. So what is saying? It is saying starting the DB2 instance, creating database sample, existing sample database found. The -force option was not specified, stopping the DB2 instance attempt to create the database sample failed. So what it indicates? It indicates maybe I have created that sample database in past. I did not remove that. So what we need to use is we need to basically go ahead and -force and then hit enter. So what it will do is it will basically override the existing database which I created. So again, we got the fail. What it says, starting the DB2 instance, creating the sample database, existing sample database found, dropping and recreating of the sample database, attempt to create sample database failed, attempt to create sample database failed. So what is saying, the database alias name or the database name sample could not be found. So the processing is complete, but the things got failed. So how? Let's do one thing. Let's see where my database got created. Okay. So ideally, when you do not give any specific path, I think that is what I might have done. Maybe we need to see like, where my database is created. I think this is the directory something is created with node 00, obviously. Okay. See here. So this is my path where my sample database is existing. So what we can do is let's do one thing. Let's clear DB2 catalog DB sample. Let's see if it does anything. Okay. So what happened is, let's see DB2 list. Sorry. Um, DB2 list. Okay. So what happened is basically, since I found like, where my database was existing, sample database is existing. Okay. Now I was able to create the database. Not create, I was able to select, connect to the database. I listed the database tables, DB2 list tables. What I need to do is, now I need to hit DB2 list DB directory. Okay. So it is giving this way. Let's do one thing. Let's DB2 or, okay, let's not do this dropping the database. Let's create the sample database again by force. We'll see if that command works or not. Let's force. DB2 sample. Syntactical example, syntactical error it is basically. Let's see if it does that way. Sorry, 1 second. What was the layer we have done? Sample database name or DB name. Okay. Sample hyphen force. Okay, it is invalid. I think I'm using the wrong syntax basically. So let's say DB2 sample hyphen name. Okay, force. Let's see if it does this way. Let's see what this error says. So if you need to see the error, DB2 question mark and error. All right. So these things, these three things, this particular error is quoting out. So we need to basically, first we need to DB2 deactivate database sample. Okay, it's saying you cannot do that because your database connection is already in DB2. Let's say DB2 terminate. Okay, so let's hit enter. So hopefully this time it is creating it. So obviously one thing what you learned today is when you have a database connection already in place, you cannot basically drop the database. And even though you cannot even deactivate it. So what we need to do is we need basically terminate, DB2 terminate or DB2 connection reset or connect reset. These commands you can use so that your connected application disconnects and then you can proceed with the further actions. So it is doing all the activities which is required basically while creating the database. So these are the things generally you could see when you hit the DB2 create database. And this is a simple way basically, ideally like creating the sample databases, any database of your name or your choice, basically the same thing which I told you, right? So these are the examples. If you go, you want to just simply hit DB2 sample if there is a no existing database with the same name, because if you're not going to pass, if you're not passing any kind of parameter, right, hyphen name of your choice or custom name, it will create the DB2, I mean the sample database. The name of the database would be the sample one. If you want to give the specific database name, obviously you need to use the basically parameter hyphen name. Then if you want to basically, if let's say sample database is already existing, you'd never know like what is there, you don't have any idea on that, you want to drop it, create it, don't drop it, just go DB2 sample name and with force. Okay, so what will happen? It will basically create the database same, okay, with the sample name. Again, let's say you don't have a choice. You created a specific directory, right, for sample or for testing your data. You don't have to mess with the production data. You don't want to mess with the development data, right? Nobody basically creates the sample databases on production environment. Let's say you are in QA or maybe on testing. You don't want to basically hit the same directories where other databases are sitting. What you would oftenly do is you create the DB2 database by using the same command but giving the different path. So what it will do, it will create the database using that particular specific path. So that is a way, another way which you can use to create the database in specific directory with a specific name. Then DB2 sample encrypt, right? So if you want to create the encrypted database with some, if you, let's say for example, if you have a data with confidential values or personal identifiable information, then you can basically use these type of options. So now database has been dropped, connected to the database. It is creating the create tables and data in schema DB2 inst1. So let's wait for more. Then again, thing like we need to think about like additional thing which I showed you, right? Now we are creating the database and we'll see like how things look like. Now creating XML columns and XML data. So obviously you are getting lob data as well. Large objects you could try is to how you handle the large objects. Okay, yeah. So this processing is complete. Let's see how and where my database is. Now same thing. So what things come in your mind first is like now my database is created, where to see my database is, where my database is stored. So simple command to see the DB2 list DB directory. So to list the databases locally, which is sitting locally on my machine, right, not remotely. I'm not going to cover that now because it is itself a good topic altogether to cover, but yeah, let's focus on the local one. So whenever you say database directory entry type indirect, this particular path or this particular parameter, wherever it is indirect, it means it is local to your machine, right? It means it is locally sitting on your server which you are accessing. Whenever you say here is a direct, okay, or -1 entry sometime, -1 with direct one, right? Yeah. So it means it shows you direct. It means not direct or maybe remote. Yeah, something is like I am not recollecting like what is that? It may be remote or yeah, it will be not indirect direct. It will be remote only. Directory entry type would be remote. Wherever you see remote, it means that particular database is not sitting on your machine. It is somewhere it is sitting somewhere else, and we have cataloged here. So cataloging is nothing, just defining the database source on your machine. As of now you understand this way. Okay, then my name database alias is same sample, name is sample, alias name can be anything, right? But you need to make sure the same name the name which I'm using for alias, it should not be already cataloged. If it is there, it will not let you catalog that. So catalog is not, we have not done this cataloging manually. It has been done by the database itself. Okay. So now if you see here, local database directory where my database is sitting, this is the place. So this is basically the place where my database is sitting. Okay. So let's go to that path and see. Then again, db2 inst ls ls. So what is basically the thing is, when you navigate to these directories, you might have seen one thing. This would remain same for any of the environment. This is a basically a standard naming convention or standard directory structure for DB2 database. First is, first two thing is the home directory of the instance. Then the file for the database where it is going to create. It will be always same like your instance name. So let's say if your instance name is DB2 inst1, the database which is which where your database and the directory where your database is going to reside would have the same name. Let's say if my instance home directory name is db2 home db2, so then again I will have the instance sorry, the database sitting into the db2 node 001. Okay, so that's how under node 001 you would see your sample database, then it's related or it's basically related file system with that database. So SQL DB directory is very much important thing. If this particular directory is corrupt, your database is corrupt. So again, we'll prepare another video to navigate you through the directory structures and the naming conventions which you follow while creating the DB2 instance and the DB2 database. With that, let's go back. Now, this is the time to validate what we need to validate. Now we have come to this particular path. Now this is a 2C, like, if I need to quickly go and do that, let's see what is my database name is sample. Okay, how it looks like instead of I being let's say sample.ddr. Okay, let's run this one. I'm where basically I'm in the home directory. Let's run this. So db2 look is what? So db2 look is a utility which will help you to basically extract the ddl of any object on the database. So this is one of the handy utility. You need to make sure you know this, at least not every detail, but you should know that syntax for a couple of things, like first, how to fetch the DDL of the database, how to fetch the DDL of entire database if you need to mimic it, if you need to replicate somewhere else, how to get the DDL of the table, how to get the DDL of basically a store procedure, how to get the DDL of views, how to get the DDL of specific schema. These are the examples you can basically go and just do the Google and navigate through that. Okay, so let's see what is there in that particular file. I'll cat it. So cat is like, again, if you are well versed with the operating system, cat is the command to open basically the file in the readable mode. Okay, these are all the examples. You can, when you're going to replicate it, you go ahead and just see that. So same thing, whatever what db2 sample has done, create database sample, automatic storage, yes, on db2 home inst1, db path is same, using code set utf8 territory India, collate using identity, page size default is 8K, default extent size is 32K, catalog table managed by automatic storage, extent size is 4, okay, automatic resize, yes, initialize size 32 MB, it will initially allocate the size of 32 MB, and as if I keep on creating the data tables, because catalog is representing the structure only, not the data. Okay, so it will keep on increasing. Temporary table space, as I mentioned, if you are not sure like what temporary I'm talking about, go please watch my video where I've mentioned DB2 installation on Oracle virtual machine. I fairly talked about the temporary table space and its usage. Then you'll have basically user table space. Okay, again, you want to see that, I'm sorry, this is new pad, I have to make sure my fingers are typing right keys. So db2 list table spaces. Okay, so database connection is not there, db2 connect to, sample. Okay, and then hit command. So it will give you all the table spaces which got created. So I'm not going to get into details at the moment. Okay, let's quickly go and so when you get the sample machine, please go ahead. I would say go and try. Maybe it's kind of, I'm not giving you homework. You go and try. These are the same commands almost like, this is the same command. Okay. And db2 look my db, my file. So this is again to fetch the DDL to get the DDL of full database. When I say full database, it means all objects as well, not just the DDL of database creation. So what I've shown you here is, right, what was there? It was just only the database creation, rest, nothing was there. So when you run this command specifically, you'll get to see like, objects as well. So again, db2 sysc. Now my instance should be up and running. So let's say what is there? ps-ef grep -i db2 sysc. Okay, you see sysc I have put. What you could see here, you can run this root and non-root, it doesn't matter. Okay, ps-ef is to list out the processes which is running, and just grep is to filter it out. So you see 0. So it means this is a process which is for my instance. So this indicates my instance is up and running. SQL lib I've already shown. Again thing, db2. Let's say for example, you see what my instance basically has set up for me. So db2 get dbm cfg. You will get all lot more details here, right? About the jdk path, about the dialog, about what memory of my instance are, what are the default buffer pools, whether my switches are on or off. It is quite long list of things. Okay, so same thing if you see here, system group name sysadm. So that I was said, like initially when you're going to create an instance, you need to make sure we need to create. So sysadmin means system administrative group. So this is the DB2I ADM1 is the system administrative group. So, okay. So again, next one is DB2 set all. This is basically talks about configuration parameter. Okay. Parameters. So what is this DB2 set all? So DB2 set all basically gives you the registry variables. Okay, you see here as a registry variables as in global, as an instance. I indicate instance variable, G indicates global. Global, why it is global? Because it is a host name, right? If I put host name, so it means it's a global. It is for the operating system, it is for the instance, it is for the database, it is for everything which is there on the system. So that is what it is, global. So global means like everywhere. So the host name would be attached to anything which is there on my DB2 environment, which is there on my operating system. Okay, so that's how my operating system is identified. So I DB2 communication, how DB2 is going to communicate on which protocol? It's a TCP IP. Okay, now the next thing is, this is very important thing. Okay, how when you basically develop a database instance and you want basically application to connect from US, UK, New Zealand, Australia, any corner of the world, right? You need to make sure you're setting DB2 com parameter, and these things must be there. Okay, these things must be there into the cat etc services. So three files are very important. One is cat etc group. Okay, then the second one is cat etc password. You should know like what these files are. Then cat etc services. etc service. Okay, then filter with the db2. All right, so these basically are the ports which is there. Earlier when you don't have any, let's say for example, to check on the database, this is also check, right? That is what I'm saying, like what we need to validate. If you go to any of the dummy machine, if you want to make sure whether db2 install or not, right, an instance is there or not, Forget about the DB2. DB2 is different one. When I say the DB2 LS, if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean DB2 is there. It will not be there. DB2 will not be there at all. It is not installed. Then when you see whether instance is there, you directly go and just do the cat etc services. If you do not find these entries, it means DB2 instance is not at all configured on this particular machine. So this is one of the validation as well. Okay. Then again, same thing, same command. It's something I've just scripted basically. Let's say you have almost 20 to 30 databases configured, right? You would see how you can fetch sample. So this command basically helps you to, if you want to write some scripts, do something for sample, maybe run stats, reorgs, creating indexes, rebuilding indexes, you could do that way. With that, I'm sure you like this video. So thank you everyone. If you have not, subscribed my channel, do go ahead and subscribe my YouTube channel DBK Funday, all about RDBMS, where I'm just not talking about RDBMS. In future, I'm going to cover everything related to database, network, hardware, software, right? But since I've started from the DB2 database, because I'll feel DB2 is one of the best databases in the world and gives you one of the good, you know, platform from the RDBMS side in case you talk about the database infrastructure in terms of data. Because when you talk about data, first mind first thing which comes in your mind is the database, right? What software, which software, what kind of software, right? So it's all about RDBMS. So with that, I'll take a pause here and come with another video in coming days. So with that, I would say bye. Thank you very much for giving your valuable time. I would appreciate if you take and see this video from start to end. And there is a reference of certain things which is there in my past videos. You may have to go and watch those videos, right? And I'm going to create playlist once I have a couple of videos which are going to be related. So obviously you will find some sort of videos where I'm referring to saying go back and watch my that video so that you understand the flow of the videos which I'm preparing it and making it for you to learn the database technology, specifically RDBMSs. Okay. So thank you again. Thanks very much for your valuable time. Go and subscribe my channel, like my channel, and comment your thoughts in my comment box, and from there I'll take the feedback and see what best I can do for you guys. And by the time, I would say if you want to share this video, share with your colleagues who are specifically looking for database career, specifically working on the database technologies like DB2 and many more. So thank you very much.